Evan, what is the Premier's strategy here in deciding to lower the bar for a referendum, knowing that it could result in a referendum on separation?
Yeah, I think to state the obvious, there's a bit of a boiling pot in specifically rural Alberta of just general political activism. And I think this is in part to help let out the steam. Now, I think there's been no shortage of criticisms and praise from some parts about how to go about it. But more than anything, I think it's to capture the attention of central Canada, specifically the halls of Parliament and the Prime Minister's office, to say, listen, there is a serious problem. Albertans have, for 3 elections, federally said, we're looking for changes. This isn't working. Lots of policies are hurting our economy directly, and we need them fixed. Ultimately, it's my view, and I think it's the view of lots of Albertans, that Prime Minister Mark Carney has come in with a wave of a mandate to do things differently. And I think he could lower the temperature pretty quickly by making some overtures that are common sense. The emissions cap is certainly one of them, making progress on Bill C-69 and others. So I think that's her approach, is ultimately, let's get attention and start making progress on the policies we need to.
Cheryl, what do you think the Premier's strategy is on this referendum question?
Yeah, I think the Premier is trying to hold her United Conservative Party together. We have always known that there is a portion of the United Conservative Party that is made up of very, very organized, very right-wing members of the party. And those right-wing members are now very actively organizing around a separation issue, a separation referendum. So rather than say, no, there's no place for you here, there's no home for you in the UCP, she's actually lowered the bar to say, if you want to organize, the door is open here for you, and we will consider your referendum question, which, yes, politically, as we know, Danielle Smith often puts her politics first. Politically, it's good for her. She can hold her party together, but she's doing it at the detriment of Alberta, at the detriment of Alberta's place in Canada, and our negotiating position with the U.S.
Okay, let's unpack that a little bit. First off, on Cheryl's point, Evan, Smith herself did say on another network yesterday that the fear would be another party would start up around this issue if she didn't allow for this referendum to go ahead, or at least the mechanism to get to the threshold of a referendum. Is that fair? Do you think there's enough momentum here that if people are frustrated, the UCP could divide?
Yeah, listen, I think the broader point is correct that like the political activism around this question is boiling hot, and it would be naive to ignore that reality, that there's, and I'm sad to say, like, it's not a fringe movement in Alberta right now. It's 30% plus. That's a sizable number. I think the NDP previously in previous elections would have been thrilled with that type of number before the 2015 mandate. So it's not a small number of Albertans, and there needs to be a reasonable way to start making progress to lower the temperature. And my hope, and I think the Premier's hope, is that there can be significant and meaningful progress on a lot of the complaints that Albertans have had with the way the country has been running.
Yeah, we heard you on that. So let's go to that, Cheryl. Do you think that if this is part of Smith's strategy to get the attention of Ottawa in hopes of getting a better deal within Confederation, allowing the threat of separation, do you think it could work?
I think we have to think about what we stand to lose if this is our negotiating tactic. I think it's absolutely fair that Albertans have frustrations. Albertans have long had frustrations with Ottawa and with Ottawa's policies. There are many ways to affect that change that don't include threatening to leave the country. And we've seen what happens. We have precedent in Canada. We have seen what happens to provincial economies when you bring instability in by threatening to leave the country and even putting this question on the table. So I think it is an ill-advised way. I mean, this Prime Minister has not even sworn his cabinet in yet. Like, give the guy a chance to make progress on the things that Alberta has asked for. Instead, she's not sharing facts about what Alberta could look like if we stood on our own as a country. She's not talking about what the economic detriment would be. Instead, she's just allowing it to go ahead. And I do think that it hurts us all.
Let's talk about whether this could backfire, Evan. The Premier says she does want Alberta to remain in Canada. We should underline that. But as you point out, the people who are publicly advocating for a referendum are part of the UCP base. So if they reach the required threshold for a referendum, do you think Danielle Smith will have any choice but to hold one?
Yeah, I mean that certainly the direction that it's holding. I mean, those were her commitments publicly. I think my desire, and I think the desire of the vast majority of the province would be that that's not necessary. I think meaningful progress with the country would be hope number one. But you're right. It opens up a bit of a Pandora's box here, and it does expose the premier and the government politically. It's a fractious issue, obviously. And so I think the hope is with the Alberta Next panel and to make meaningful conversations with the Prime Minister's office to happen relatively quickly. And, we've got the G7, we've got the Global Energy Show next month here in Calgary, we've got the Stampede. There's significant milestones coming up that hopefully we can start to see meaningful progress on Alberta's long-standing complaints with several energy policies coming from Ottawa.
Let's stay on the theory of this backfiring. What about the prospect for a referendum's success, Cheryl? Right now, polls show about 30% of Albertans in favor of separation, 65 to 70% are opposed. Do you think anything could change to tilt more people towards separating? And I am thinking, say, Mark Carney draws a line in the sand and doesn't meet Smith's demands, for instance.
I think we've always known that the majority of Albertans see themselves as Canadians first. And I know there are a lot of feelings and a lot of frustration about the election outcome and about the policies that remain in place from Ottawa. But I think the majority of people don't see leaving the country as a solution to those problems. And this is where the government is falling short in terms of where it could intervene, the Alberta government, into this argument. The government has at its fingertips tons of data and tons of information about what that would look like for Alberta, which doesn't have a central bank, which doesn't have military, can't secure our borders, which doesn't have access to tidewater. It's important that we paint that picture for people about what Alberta gives up if it really wants to have this conversation about being independent. What would that independence look like and what would it do to our economy?
We haven't heard that coming from the government yet, Evan. Do you think Smith would campaign for, essentially, as Cheryl's describing, the no side in a referendum?
The no side to we want to stay in Canada?
Yeah, like no to your question of whether or not we leave. We want to stay.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, those have been her comments publicly. I think the desire for everyone here is, gosh, it would sure be great if this could work. And that's the hope of the government. That's the hope that Premier Smith has laid out. And
hang on a sec. I just want to be clear. She hasn't said publicly she would campaign against it. Are you reading her words differently? You think that she would have to get out and campaign with all the stats that Cheryl just rattled off?
Yeah, I mean, that's a long sequence of events from now. I would assume, based on her comments about wanting Canada to work and to make meaningful progress, that's her hope. There's the Alberta Next panel that I think will be what the government of Alberta endorses in a referendum. Yeah. So I would be very skeptical to go down that direction that she would campaign for in support of it at this point. Okay. I think her focus would be, let's get a deal. Let's make Canada work.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. Great conversation as always, you two, and it will continue. Thanks.